A few days ago, I did a video about a random mock draft from the 2021 cycle and how the players turned out 3 years later. Also in my camera roll, there was a screenshot of the top 10 quarterbacks that MaxPreps had listed after the 2021 high school football season. This was of all age and all class and was not specific to any year, and I thought we'd do something similar. We're to take a look at the guys that MaxPreps had ranked as top 10 high school quarterbacks and see where they are 3 years later. This includes guys like Quinn Yates, Cade Kade, Malachi Nelson, and even Arch Manning. We got 10 guys to cover, but before we do that, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and talk about these MaxPreps top 10 quarterbacks from 2021, 3 years later. Okay, so at number 10 on MaxPreps' list of top 10 high school quarterbacks, we have Ty Simpson. After he eventually blew up as a sophomore, Ty Simpson would take the next step as a junior at Westview High School in Tennessee. He threw for nearly 2,000 yards and 20 touchdowns and gained offers from every school in the country. He would have to choose between Clemson and Alabama, and during his senior season, he ended up throwing for 2,800 yards with 41 touchdowns and also ran for 862 yards and 11 scores. He ended up leading them to the 2A state championship game, and Ty Simpson became a 5-star recruit and the number 3 quarterback in the class of 2022, who is now going to head to Alabama. Unfortunately, Simpson wouldn't really get to do much, as he completed 4 of 5 passes as a redshirt in 2022, and then this past year he would complete with both Tyler Buckner and Jalen Milroe for the starting job, but he would not end up getting it. Simpson completed 11 of 20 passes for 179 yards, and he has yet to score a passing touchdown. He did, though, run for 86 yards and 2 scores on the ground, and Simpson's a guy who I expect to be the frontrunner for the job in 2025, but at the same time, he is not a Kalen DeBoer commit, so pretty much anything could happen with him. By now, Ty Simpson was supposed to be a lot bigger deal than he is, but the jury's still out if he's going to be a bust or not. We'll have to wait and see, but he was impressive as a high school senior. At number 9, the MaxPreps list had Malik Murphy. He was a pretty big recruit coming out of Junipero Serra High School in California, and Murphy was known for his incredible length and his huge arm. During his senior season, he led Junipero to a 10-1 record and ended up throwing for 2,900 yards with 22 touchdowns and 10 picks, or rushing for 6 more scores on the ground. Because of that, he became a huge quarterback recruit and would decide to commit to Texas. According to 24/7 Sports, he was the number 9 quarterback and a top 200 player in the class of 2022, and Malik Murphy was going to get a significant amount of hype once he got to Texas. Unfortunately, he would arrive right when Quinn Yates would start to play, so Malik Murphy has been a little bit limited in his 2 years so far. He didn't end up playing at all in 2022, but this past year he threw for 477 yards with 3 touchdowns and also 3 interceptions. He played a good amount in both their games against BYU and Kansas State, as Ewers was kind of struggling with an injury at the time, but after the season was over, Ewers announced he was coming back, and Malik Murphy has decided to transfer to Duke, where he will likely be the day 1 starter for new head coach Manny Diaz after he was the DC at Penn State. Murphy has a lot of untapped potential, and at 6'5" with a cannon of an arm and great athleticism, he's someone I'm really excited to watch and could be an under-the-radar quarterback for the 2024 college season. At the time when this list came out, Noah Fifita would have been shocking to see. He was only a 3-star recruit and was barely considered a top 40 quarterback in the class of 2022. After going to Servite High School in Anaheim, he ended up becoming a huge name. As a senior in 2021, he ended up throwing for 2,900 yards with 34 touchdowns and also had 22 touchdowns and 685 yards in the ground. He put up incredible numbers and in total had over 7,000 yards and nearly 100 touchdowns in his 32 varsity games. Despite that, he was only a 3-star recruit and would decide to commit to Jed Fish at Arizona. Fifita would not end up doing much in 2022, throwing for 9 completions and 1 touchdown, and with Jaden DeLora being the starter the first part of the year, Fifita was looking like just being a bench warmer again. Luckily for Fifita though, he'd have his breakout performance against USC, as he went absolutely berserk against the Trojans, throwing for 303 yards and 5 total touchdowns. That came a week after his first career start against Washington, in which he had 3 scores, and throughout the rest of the year, Fifita completely dominated, throwing for nearly 3,000 yards and 25 touchdowns, which is 6 picks. Going into the 2024 season, Fifita is seen as one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12, a dark horse Heisman contender, and someone who could play his way into the NFL. While he's a little bit undersized, Fifita was definitely a hidden gem that MaxPreps spotted a long time ago. At number 7, MaxPreps had a guy by the name of Connor Harrell. After he eventually went to Thompson High School in Alabama, Harrell blew up as a senior, throwing for 2,500 yards with 39 touchdowns, and also led his team to a 13-1 record in a state championship. He ended up being named Alabama's Gatorade Player of the Year at one point, and in total had over 6,000 yards and 81 touchdowns. Unfortunately, despite his incredible numbers, he was only listed as a 3-star recruit and was ranked as the number 33 quarterback in the class of 2022. He chose the Tar Heels over Northwestern and Arizona State, and so far, Harrell has not been able to do much. He redshirted in 2022, and then this past year threw for 270 yards and 2 touchdowns with an interception. He also had his first career rushing touchdown. It looks like he'll be the backup to Max Johnson, but for now it looks like he'll be waiting his turn, and maybe he can be the starter in 2025, or he'll transfer down. I'm not saying Connor Harrell is a bust, but he just hasn't had that opportunity with Drake May being there, but it doesn't take away from his impressive 2021 high school season. At number 6, we have to talk about Walker Howard. Back in time, his dad played quarterback at LSU from 1992 to 1995, and was actually top 10 in LSU history for passing yards. Like father, like son, eventually Walker Howard became a big-time recruit as he went to St. Thomas More Catholic High School in Lafayette, Louisiana, and as a senior threw for 2,394 yards and 25 touchdowns. He ended up winning the High School Player of the Year in Louisiana and became a highly ranked recruit because of it. He ended up being ranked as the 5th best quarterback in the class of 2022, and just like his dad, went over to LSU. As a freshman with the Tigers, he ended up playing in just a couple of games, completing 2 of 4 passes for 7 yards. After the season was over, he would decide to transfer to Ole Miss, where he would be the backup to Jackson Dart, and also split time with Spencer Sanders. He didn't do much either, as he completed 3 of 4 passes for 56 yards. So far through 2 years, Walker Howard has done nothing at the college level, but to be fair, he has been stuck behind pretty good quarterbacks, as he was stuck behind Jaden Daniels and now Jackson Dart. Dart's back in 2024, so Howard will likely be prepping to be the starter in 2025, but right now it's been a little bit disappointing, as I hope to see him a little bit earlier. The jury's still out, but he was impressive in high school. And number 5 on the list, we actually had a player who was only a junior in high school. His name was Malachi Nelson. After growing up in Southern California, Malachi Nelson arrived at Los Alamitos High School and played as a true freshman. By the time he was a junior in 2021, alongside Makai Lemon, he had an incredible year in which he threw for 2,690 yards and 39 touchdowns. He also ran for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns, and even also caught a pass for 19 yards. Because of this, he was listed as a 5-star recruit and decided to commit to USC. Malachi Nelson had all the swagger and confidence that you'd want for a quarterback, and only had a great senior year and built upon the hype. Sadly though, this past season, he ended up being the 3rd-string quarterback behind Caleb Williams and Miller Moss, completing 1 of 3 passes for 0 yards. After the season was over, he kinda shocked the entire college football world, as he chose not to stay and compete with Miller Moss, but instead transfer to Boise State. Apparently, he's not even being guaranteed the starting job yet for the Broncos, but honestly, there's no way he won't start in my eyes. But Malachi Nelson has kinda had a quick fall from grace. He went from the number 13 overall recruit in the class of 2023 to now being a guy who's at Boise State. At number 4, we have the legendary Arch Manning. Obviously, I don't need to do too much explanation to tell you who Arch Manning is, but when he eventually got to Isidore Newman High School, Arch Manning took off pretty quickly and blossomed into a blue-chip recruit. As a junior, he threw for 1,800 yards with 26 touchdowns and only had 4 interceptions. He also had 7 more scores on the ground, and I'm not trying to be critical, but I'm not sure how that ranks above the other 6 guys we've already talked about. Obviously, he became a 5-star recruit by this point, and in total he finished with nearly 9,000 passing yards and 115 touchdowns, but his junior year wasn't exactly that great. Still though, he became a 5-star recruit and the number 1 player in the class of 2023, and he decided to commit to Texas, and now so far he's just completed 2 of 5 passes. He ended up having 30 yards, and also ended up showing out in the spring game, but right now with Quinn Ewers being the starter, we still don't really know what we have in Arch Manning, as some think he is truly a prodigy, and others think he's the most overhyped recruit ever. But I feel like MaxPreps put him at number 4 just for the clicks. I mean, no offense, but there are plenty of other quarterbacks who had more than 1,800 yards that year. At number 3, we have a guy by the name of Gunnar Stockton. Coming out of Georgia, he ended up becoming the 2021 Georgia Football Player of the Year, as he ended up throwing for 4,134 yards and 55 touchdowns, and also ran for 956 yards and 15 touchdowns. Gunnar Stockton put up Mad Men type numbers and also led his team to an 11-2 record. Because of that, he became a 5-star recruit and would eventually flip from South Carolina to Georgia. This was a huge get for Kirby Smart, as he already had another historic Georgia quarterback in Brock Vandagriff just a couple of years before. Gunnar Stockton would arrive in 2022, and this past season in 2023, he would throw for 148 yards and 2 touchdowns. Right now, it looks like he's going to be the 100% backup to Carson Beck, but he will have to fight off Jaden Rashada and Ryan Puglisi. Stockton looks like he's probably going to be the guy in 2025, and based on his high school career, he has a ton of potential. Obviously, we're still going to have to wait and see as he's been on the bench, but honestly, Stockton had an incredible 2021 season. And number 2, we have Cade Kade. A lot of people know about Cade as he came out of Westlake High School and actually put on a pretty incredible 2021 season. He ended up leading Westlake High School to 3 straight state championships, was the USA Today Offensive Player of the Year in both 2020 and 2021, and truly did put up pretty incredible numbers. As a senior in 2021, he threw for 3,251 yards and 43 touchdowns and only had 3 picks, and he also went 16-0 while rushing for 465 yards and 12 scores. And also, guess what? He also missed 3 games with injury. This guy was absolutely legit, and after Dabo Sweeney missed out on Ty Simpson, Cade Kade would fall into his lap. He eventually blew up into the #1 quarterback in the class of 2022 and was seen as a future NFL guy who could keep Clemson's great quarterback tradition going. After being a backup to DJ in 2022, he'd get a chance to play in their bowl game, and he'd finish the year with 697 yards with 2 touchdowns and 3 picks. Taking over as the full-time starter in 2023, Cade was a mixed bag. He ended up throwing for 2,800 yards with 19 scores and 9 picks, and also ran for 4 more touchdowns. Cade is seen as a player who needs to get much better in 2024 and needs to take that next step, and while he has shown a flash of brilliance, he's also been a little bit underwhelming, and many are waiting for him to pop off. His high school career was truly incredible, and he was decorated with every award possible, but nobody's really going to care about that if he doesn't pan out these next 2 years at Clemson. We'll have to wait and see, but the sky is truly the limit for Cade Kade. Finally, at number 1, we have to talk about Quinn Yates. He ended up going to the prestigious Carroll High School, and Ewers was seen as the next big thing to come out of Texas, as he was the #1 recruit in the country and was seen as a prodigy. He ended up finishing his high school career with over 6,400 passing yards and 73 touchdowns, and also ran for over 700 yards and 12 scores on the ground. After becoming the #1 player in the country, Quinn Ewers would decide to flip from Texas to Ohio State, and then eventually, after redshirting there, he would transfer back to Texas in 2022. Ewers would end up throwing for 2,100 yards and 15 touchdowns as a redshirt freshman, and then this past year he threw for 3,479 yards with 22 touchdowns and 6 picks. He led Texas to the college football playoff, and he honestly could have gone off to the NFL, but instead decided to come back for 1 more year, where he probably is the 2nd best returning quarterback in college football, and hopefully will lead Texas to the championship, or at least the championship game appearance. The sky is going to be the limit for Quinn, as he'll probably be a top 10 pick, but for now, we're going to have to wait and see how his season goes. So yeah, in total, these are the top 10 quarterbacks for the 2021 high school football season according to MaxPreps, and 3 years later, this is how they all turned out. Most of them really still haven't played that much, and a couple of others have already dominated, but for the most part, they've all been pretty successful. But for the most part, MaxPreps was pretty much correct. What do you guys think though? What do you think of this list? What other list should I take a look at in my next video? And before you go, don't forget to also leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.